Moscow, an ancient city with a history spanning thousands of years, has been the center of early Slavic states since the 9th century AD. By the 14th century, Moscow had firmly established itself as the religious center of Russia and from then on became the nation's symbolic heart. The establishment of the Soviet Union in the 20th century brought even more glory to this ancient city, as it became a place where humanity's most noble ideals were realized. However, this thousand-year-old city has fallen 5 times in history. So, which countries has Moscow fallen to, and what profound impacts did these invasions have on Russia? The first fall of Moscow occurred during the expansion of the Mongol Empire. The leader who took Moscow was Beta Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan. In 1236, Beta inherited the Mongol insignia and the command over the Kipchak Khanate. In 1237, the ambitious Beta Khan began preparing for his eastern campaign, targeting the vast Eastern European plains and the Rus principalities. Starting from the Volga River, Beta launched a ferocious offensive against the Rus. The Mongol army, known for its speed and mobility, employed fast-moving cavalry units and skilled archers to quickly surround and destroy their enemies. In 1238, after conquering several cities in the Principality of Vladimir, the Mongol army continued its march northward towards Moscow. At the time, Moscow had not yet become the center of future Russia. It was a burgeoning commercial city located on a small elevation between the Volga and Oka rivers. While rich in religion and trade, its military defenses were limited. On March 23, 1238, Batu's army arrived at the gates of Moscow. Although the city resisted the Mongol onslaught, its weak walls and limited defenses were no match for the Mongol military might. The walls were soon breached, and Mongol forces poured into the city, looting and destroying it. Buildings were burned, residents were slaughtered or enslaved, and Moscow lay in ruins. Moscow's second fall was again connected to the Mongols. The Golden Horde, a Mongol state established in Eastern Europe after the death of Genghis Khan, maintained long-term control and taxation over the region. Under the Golden Horde's rule, the Principality of Moscow allied itself with the Mongols by collecting taxes on their behalf, allowing Moscow to grow and thrive. However, this also sowed the seeds of Moscow's desire to overthrow Mongol domination. In the late 14th century, Toktamish Khan of the Golden Horde sent a 100,000-strong army to crush Moscow, almost razing the city to the ground. This devastating loss served as a wake-up call for Moscow, making it aware of the power imbalance between them and the Mongols, and laying the groundwork for its future rebellion against Mongol rule. After this defeat, Moscow remained low-key, but behind the scenes, it gradually expanded its territory and influence by skillfully navigating its relationship with the Golden Horde. By the late 15th century, under Ivan III, Moscow once again rose in prominence, attracting the attention of the Mongols. In 1480, Ivan III led his forces in a standoff with Akhmat Khan of the Golden Horde along the banks of the Ugra River. This standoff, though lacking large-scale combat, carried the tension and strategic significance of a full-scale war. Akhmat Khan sought to finally subdue Moscow and eliminate the threat of its independence, but Ivan III displayed exceptional leadership and diplomacy. He prepared for war by strengthening defenses and forming alliances, notably with the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, weakening the Golden Horde's military position. Ivan III also exploited divisions within the Golden Horde, sending spies and emissaries to sow discord among their ranks. Eventually, Akhmat Khan recognized the difficulties and risks of attacking Moscow and chose to withdraw. The standoff ended in Moscow's favor, signaling the end of the Mongol domination of Moscow and setting the stage for the rise of the Russian Empire by the late 16th century. In the 16th century, the Mongol hold on Eurasia was in decline, and Eastern Europe had become a battlefield for European nations and ethnic groups. During the reign of Ivan IV, Ivan the Terrible, Russia frequently clashed with Baltic states over control of access to the sea. In 1558, a war broke out over the Baltic Sea's strategic importance, and Russia, as one of the main participants, concentrated its efforts on fighting the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Unexpectedly, Russia was attacked from the rear by the Crimean Khanate, which had split from the Golden Horde and become a significant power in the northern Black Sea and southern Russian steppes, mainly composed of Tatars. In 1571, the Crimean army crossed the steppes from Crimea and bypassed Russian defenses, advancing directly on Moscow. On May 21st, Crimean forces launched a surprise attack on Moscow. With Russia's main army engaged in the Baltic region, the city's defenses were nearly empty. The Tatars quickly captured the outer fortifications and began a ferocious assault on the city. They then set large parts of Moscow ablaze, causing widespread destruction. Many residents were massacred, and others were enslaved and taken back to Crimea. The devastation was one of the worst defeats in Moscow's history, with the city almost completely razed. The fourth fall of Moscow occurred in the early 17th century, and this time the invaders were from the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. The animosity between Moscow and the Commonwealth had roots in the early 15th century, when Moscow's expansion into southwestern territories led to conflicts with Lithuania and Poland. These tensions culminated in a war, with Moscow suffering a major defeat but still managing to capture Smolensk. This began a long period of rivalry between Moscow and the Commonwealth. By the late 16th and early 17th centuries, Russia entered a period of internal political crisis known as the Time of Troubles, marked by power struggles among the nobility and external interference, especially from Poland. In 1609, Poland took advantage of Russia's internal chaos. At this time, the son of Polish King Sigismund III, Władysław, was declared Tsar by some Russian nobles, although he was not widely recognized. Using this as a pretext, the Polish army invaded Russia in 1609. By September 17, 1610, Polish forces had captured Moscow, occupying the Kremlin and establishing Władysław as the Tsar. Polish control over Moscow lasted until October 22, 1612, when a Russian militia launched a final assault on the Polish invaders, forcing them to withdraw from the Kremlin. This invasion highlighted the importance of national defense and helped strengthen Russia's military capabilities for future conflicts. The final fall of Moscow occurred during Napoleon's invasion of Russia in 1812. In June of that year, Napoleon led a grand army of 600,000 troops, consisting of soldiers from all over Europe, across the Polish border into Russia. Napoleon's plan was to quickly defeat Russia, but his army encountered fierce resistance at Smolensk and elsewhere. The Russians employed a scorched earth policy, destroying resources that Napoleon's army could have used for supplies. On September 7th, a fierce battle was fought near Borodino, with heavy casualties on both sides. Though the French had a numerical advantage, the Russian army resisted tenaciously and ultimately retreated in an organized manner, avoiding encirclement. Napoleon pressed on and entered Moscow on September 14th, only to find it largely deserted. The Russians had set most of the city ablaze, denying Napoleon the supplies and rest he had planned for. The Russian scorched earth tactics foiled Napoleon's plans for a quick victory. Facing the harsh winter and dwindling supplies, Napoleon ordered a retreat from Moscow at the end of October. The retreat proved disastrous, as Russian guerrillas harassed the French forces, inflicting heavy losses. This marked the turning point in Napoleon's campaign, signaling the decline of the French Empire, while Russia emerged as a great power in Europe. Throughout its history, Moscow has been invaded 5 times, enduring war and devastation, but each invasion brought long-term benefits to the city and the nation. Despite the short-term losses, these conflicts forged Moscow into a stronger, more resilient city, ultimately leading it to greater prominence.